begins by showing a beautiful woman named Jennifer Hills, a novelist who decides to go to a remote area far from the hustle and bustle of New York City to write her next book in privacy. Jennifer then rents a cabin in Louisiana from an old man named Earl. Because the cabin's location is quite remote, Earl even makes a map of his cabin for her and explains everything to her so that Jennifer won't get lost. After making the payment, Jennifer hurries off to Louisiana in her car. During the way, Jennifer appears to stop at a gas station to refuel and ensure the location of the cabin she will visit by asking the gas station attendant. At that moment, a gas station attendant named Johnny Miller, who is on duty, appears to admire Jennifer's beauty to the point of trying to flirt with her in front of his two friends, Andy Chirinsky and Stanley Woods. Unfortunately, Johnny's advances only frighten Jennifer, prompting her to quickly leave the gas station, while Andy and Stanley seem to laugh at their friend who failed to charm a girl. On the other hand, Johnny, angered by Jennifer's rejection, intends to teach her a lesson. Sometime later, Jennifer finally arrives at a cabin on the edge of a lake by the woods. Its remote location makes her happy because she can write her novel peacefully. After finishing her work, Jennifer takes the time to relax by the lake while enjoying a glass of wine. That night, Jennifer, sitting on the porch chatting with her friend on the phone, is suddenly startled by suspicious sounds coming from the side of the cabin, which prompting her to bravely check around the rented cabin. Not far from her rented cabin, Jennifer finds a shed filled with tools and feeling nothing suspicious, so she decides to leave while thinking that the suspicious sounds earlier might have come from rats in the shed. On another occasion, Jennifer is seen washing her clothes in the sink, and unbeknownst to her, someone is secretly recording her from outside the window. The next morning, Jennifer is seen jogging around the cabin when she notices an abandoned house in the woods. Curious, she checks every room in the house and sees the same tools she found in the shed yesterday. Although feeling odd, Jennifer doesn't seem to pay much attention to it and returns to the cabin to continue her work. Upon reaching the cabin, Jennifer, intending to wash her face, is surprised to find murky water from the tap and a suddenly clogged toilet. After that, she immediately contacts Earl to inform him of all the broken facilities in his cabin. Jennifer's problems escalate as her phone falls into the toilet after she finishes her call with Earl. Shortly after, Earl orders a plumber named Matthew Duncan to fix the toilet damage in the cabin. Without much time, Matthew successfully completes his task and bids farewell to Jennifer. Meanwhile, Johnny and his two friends are seen relaxing by the lake near the cabin Jennifer rented. Shortly after, Matthew approaches them and lies that Jennifer kissed him while he was fixing the plumbing. Upon hearing this, Stanley then shows a video recording of Jennifer washing clothes. Unexpectedly, he is the one who has been secretly recording Jennifer in the cabin. While Johnny, who failed to get Jennifer's attention, starts to get angry, so he invites his three friends to approach and make her kneel before them. That night, Jennifer is seen inhaling illegal drugs until she passes out. Suddenly, she senses someone around her cabin and goes out to check the cabin's yard because Jennifer doesn't see anyone. She intends to go back inside the cabin, but she is startled by the carcass of a bird lying on the porch. Without suspicion, Jennifer moves the bird carcass aside and goes back into the cabin, where she sees her laptop wallpaper change to a photo of Johnny and others, making her start to feel that something is wrong. At the same time, Jennifer realizes that Johnny and his friends have entered the cabin. Despite being scared, she tries to drive them all out of the cabin, but Johnny and the others pay no attention to her. Johnny even begins to attack her, and just as they are about to molest her, Jennifer manages to run out of the cabin and into the woods. Fortunately, Jennifer encounters Earl, who is out hunting with his friend, Sheriff Storch, so she reports the recent events she experienced to both of them. After hearing the report, Storch asks Earl to go home first because he and Jennifer will return to the cabin to check the situation. With a rifle in hand, Storch, accompanied by Jennifer, goes to the cabin and orders Johnny and his group to come out and surrender. But the cabin appears deserted, as if the thugs have left the place. Storch then begins to inspect the rented cabin until he finds alcohol and illegal drugs that Jennifer previously used. Seeing this, Storch, unable to locate Johnny and the others, assumes that she has lied. Upon hearing this, Jennifer tries to explain what the thugs did to her. At the same time, Johnny and his friends enter the cabin, But oddly, Storch makes no attempt to protect Jennifer. Unexpectedly, Storch has conspired with Johnny and his group to teach her a lesson. Cornered, Jennifer seems unable to resist, and the situation is exploited by Johnny, who forces Matthew to molest Jennifer. After that, Johnny and his group let Jennifer walk into the woods where the five men take turns abusing her again. Stanley even records all the events while laughing as if it were something enjoyable for him and the others. Afterward, Jennifer, now in disarray, walks naked while being followed by Johnny and his friends. Just as Jennifer reaches a bridge where Storch intends to shoot her, she suddenly jumps from the bridge and falls into the river. Storch then orders Johnny and the others to search for Jennifer to make sure she is dead and will not cause trouble for them. Storch also instructs Stanley to destroy their recording tape and to burn all of Jennif's belongings to eliminate evidence of their crime. Several days later, Matthew is seen searching the river for Jennifer's body, regretting his actions and haunted by the horrific events that befell her. A month later, Jennifer's worried family, still unaware of her whereabouts, contacts Earl to inquire about her. Since Earl is also clueless, he promptly contacts Storch and informs him that Jennifer's family will report her disappearance to the police. On the other hand, Stanley appears panicked as the cassette camera containing Jennifer's video suddenly disappears, stolen by someone. Unexpectedly, he had destroyed an empty cassette in front of Storch and others because Stanley wanted to keep the tape. Reluctantly, he informs Johnny and the others about the missing recording, which infuriating Johnny to the point of wanting to beat Stanley. Fortunately, Andy calms Johnny down and urges them to find a solution. That night, Johnny is startled by a dead bird thrown in front of his house door, and he recalls the moment when he did the same at Jennifer's rented cabin. Just before Johnny returns to his house, the bushes in his yard suddenly rustle, piquing his curiosity to investigate. There, he finds no one but some rubber bands scattered around, belonging to Matthew. Meanwhile, Storch, returning from work, is shocked to find a video cassette sent to him by Jennifer. Storch appears panicked, fearing that his wife might discover the terrible things he has done. When he inquires about it, Storch feels relieved after learning that his wife has not yet opened the cassette, assuming it to be empty. Shortly afterward, Storch meets Johnny and his two friends to teach Stanley a lesson for not following his orders, which could lead to serious trouble if anyone else finds evidence of the abuse they inflicted on Jennifer. Afterward, they discuss the strange events that have befallen them, and from all the evidence found, Johnny and the others suspect that Matthew deliberately terrorized them. Because of that, Storch orders Johnny and his friends to confront Matthew. On another occasion, Storch invited Earl to go hunting in the woods, as they usually did. Just as Earl decided to take a short break before resuming the hunt, Storch suddenly killed him, who could be a witness to Jennifer's disappearance, especially since Earl had known about someone bothering her while at the cabin. At the same time, Matthew, who came to Earl's cabin, was startled by the sound of Jennifer, which frightened him so much that he accidentally fell down the stairs and passed out. When he regained consciousness, Matthew couldn't believe that Jennifer was still alive and seeking revenge for their actions a month ago. Although Jennifer knew that Matthew was not guilty and had regretted his actions, she still refused to forgive the young man and grabbed a rope. Turning to Andy and Stanley, they were both seen in the woods searching for Matthew. Upon reaching the edge of the lake, Andy caught a glimpse of someone he thought was Matthew, so he immediately followed. Unfortunately, Andy was surprised by Stanley's sudden appearance, intentionally startling him. At the same time, they both heard Matthew's voice coming from the empty house in the middle of the woods. Just as Stanley was about to investigate, his leg got caught in a bear trap set by Jennifer beforehand. Hearing his friend scream, Andy rushed to rescue Stanley, but Jennifer was ready with a stick to strike him from behind. Shortly after, Andy, regaining consciousness, and he was shocked to find himself tied above a bathtub filling with water. Meanwhile, Stanley appeared in pain with a broken leg, unable to do anything to fight back against Jennifer, who intentionally recorded him as her act of revenge for what he had done to her. Jennifer also tortured Stanley by tying him to a tree and attaching 2 fishing hooks to his eyelids before leaving him in that condition. After torturing Stanley, Jennifer returned to the house and began to submerge Andy's face in the bathtub water. Not only that, Jennifer, still not satisfied, appeared to add powdered lye to the water and deliberately submerged Andy's face until it blistered and he died. At the same time, Stanley, covered in blood, became a feast for several crows, leading to his slow death. Switching to the gas station where Johnny worked, as usual, he carried out his duties as a gas station attendant until Jennifer suddenly arrived and knocked him unconscious. Shortly afterward, Johnny woke up in an abandoned room, bound with his mouth gagged with a rusty iron bar. At that moment, Jennifer retaliated against him by pulling out his teeth one by one and torturing him until he died. 2 hours later, Storch, who was on patrol, was startled by a call from Jennifer claiming to be with his daughter named Chastity. Learning this, Storch, worried about Chastity's safety, hurried home to check on his family. Upon arriving home, Storch received news from his wife that Chastity was playing in the park with Jennifer. Without hesitation, Storch returned to the car and went to search for his daughter in the park. Unfortunately, Storch couldn't find her, and when he returned to the car, unbeknownst to him, Jennifer was already in the back seat and knocked him unconscious. Upon regaining consciousness, Storch found himself in an empty house in the middle of the woods, tied up with a rifle aimed at his body. At that moment, Storch confessed to Jennifer that he regretted his actions, but she didn't care and continued to torture him. Satisfied with torturing Storch, Jennifer then attached the rifle's trigger to the hand of Matthew, who was still alive and unconscious. Shortly afterward, Matthew finally woke up, surprised to see Storch in front of him covered in blood. At that moment, Storch panicked and asked Matthew not to move, but unfortunately, Matthew was unaware that his hand was connected to the rifle trigger, accidentally moved his hand, causing the rifle to shoot both Storch and Matthew to death. In the end of the film, it shows Jennifer outside the empty house in the middle of the woods, smiling after hearing the gunshot from inside the house. Knowing that Storch and Matthew had been shot dead. Moral lesson from the story: if you ever rent a cabin, make sure the only thing sneaking around is your inspiration, not creepy neighbors or secret videotapes.